The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the most impressive structure in the known universe. Its walls rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the ceiling. Giant crystals embedded in the walls gave off soft light that changed colors depending on the time of day. Flags and symbols from 700 different alien civilizations hung from golden poles, each one representing a species that had earned its place among the stars. Ambassador Daniel Cole stood at the entrance and took a deep breath. He was 53 years old, with gray hair at his temples and calm brown eyes that had seen more than most people could imagine. He had survived 3 wars during his career in the diplomatic service. He had negotiated peace treaties that saved millions of lives. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. Today, humanity would ask for its place among the great powers of the galaxy. Behind him stood his aide, a young woman named Amy Shaw. She carried a data tablet and wore the simple uniform of a junior diplomat. Her blonde hair was pulled back neatly, and she looked exactly like what she was supposed to be, a nervous young bureaucrat on her first important assignment. She kept her eyes down and her shoulders slightly hunched, the picture of someone who felt out of place among such powerful beings. The 2 humans walked forward into the chamber. Every step echoed in the vast space. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to watch them, and Daniel could feel the weight of their judgment. The Vorath High Chancellor sat on an elevated platform at the center of the room. He was an insectoid creature, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and a head covered in compound eyes that seemed to look in every direction at once. His mandibles clicked together when he spoke, and a small device on his chest translated his words into English. "The human delegation arrives," the Chancellor announced. His voice was cold and carried no welcome. "You requested this audience, Ambassador Cole. The Council has granted you this honor. Speak quickly. Our time is valuable." Daniel smiled politely and bowed his head in respect. "High Chancellor, distinguished members of the Council, I thank you for receiving us. Humanity comes today seeking partnership with the great civilizations of the galaxy." He paused and looked around the chamber. Dozens of species watched him. The Zelkari, beings made of living gel suspended in floating tanks. The Thrin, who looked like wolves that had learned to walk on 2 legs. The Kalori, tall and silver-skinned with eyes like black pools. Each species had conquered stars before humans had learned to make fire. "We offer technology exchange," Daniel continued. "We offer mutual defense agreements. We have developed agricultural methods that can increase food production by 300% on most worlds. In return, we ask only for fair treatment in galactic trade and recognition of our territorial claims." Laughter filled the chamber. It came in many forms: the bubbling of the Zelkari, the barking of the Thrin, the clicking of the Vorath. But the meaning was the same in every language. They were laughing at him. High Chancellor Vorath raised one of his 4 arms, and the laughter slowly died down. "Fair treatment," he repeated, as if the words tasted strange in his mouth. "Your species has been traveling among the stars for barely 200 years. You have no fleets worth mentioning, no ancient alliances, no power of any kind. And yet you come here and speak of fairness as if you were our equals." "We may be young," Daniel replied calmly, "but we have much to offer. Our scientists have made discoveries that could benefit every species in this chamber. Our farmers have solved problems that have plagued other worlds for centuries. We do not ask for special treatment. We ask only for the same opportunities that other species have received." The Thrin delegate leaned forward, his yellow eyes gleaming. "The same opportunities? When my species joined the Council, we had already conquered 12 star systems. We had proven our strength in battle. What have humans proven?" "We have proven our ability to survive," Daniel said. "Our homeworld has suffered ice ages, asteroid impacts, and countless natural disasters. We have faced extinction many times, and each time we have found a way to continue. That determination is what brought us to the stars." "Determination," the Chancellor said, making the word sound like an insult. "We have seen your kind before, Ambassador. Young species full of hope and dreams. They come to this chamber expecting to be welcomed as brothers. They learn quickly that the galaxy does not work that way." While Daniel spoke with the council, Amy Shaw stood quietly behind him. To anyone watching, she appeared to be barely paying attention, just another junior official bored by political speeches. But her eyes were moving constantly behind her downcast expression. She counted the guards, 24 in the main chamber, another 16 at the entrances. She noted the placement of security cameras and identified 3 blind spots in their coverage. She calculated the distance to every exit and estimated how long it would take to reach each one. Her fingers brushed against the pendant hanging around her neck. It looked like a simple piece of jewelry, the kind of thing a young woman might wear to feel connected to home. In reality, it was a communication device more advanced than anything the Galactic Council had ever developed. The touch activated a subdermal implant hidden beneath her skin, opening a secure channel that could not be detected or intercepted. 300 kilometers above the Council Station, a ship hung in the darkness of space. It had no official name and appeared on no registry. Its hull was covered in a material that absorbed sensor signals instead of reflecting them. To the most advanced detection systems in the galaxy, it simply did not exist. Commander Chris Lane sat in the captain's chair and watched his screens. A soft pulse of light told him that Amy had made contact. He turned to his crew, 12 men and women who had trained for years for missions exactly like this one. "Ghost protocol confirmed," he said quietly. "Our people are in position throughout the station. If anything goes wrong down there, we move in 90 seconds. Everyone knows their assignments. Stay sharp." Back in the council chamber, High Chancellor Varath was still speaking, listing all the reasons why humanity did not deserve a seat at the galactic table. Daniel listened patiently, nodding at appropriate moments, asking respectful questions when given the chance. He showed no sign of anger or frustration. He was the perfect diplomat, calm and reasonable in the face of insults. But behind his polite smile, Daniel was counting too. Counting the minutes until the council revealed its true intentions. Counting the seconds until the trap was sprung. Because Daniel Cole had not come to this chamber hoping for the best. He had come prepared for the worst. The galaxy was about to learn that humans did not walk into dangerous situations without a plan. And when a human made a plan, they made very sure that they would walk out again. The High Chancellor finished his speech and looked down at the human ambassador with something like pity in his compound eyes. "Do you understand your position now, Ambassador? Do you see how small your species truly is?" Daniel smiled. "I understand perfectly, High Chancellor. Please, continue with the proceedings. I am very interested to hear what the Council has decided." And so the trap began to close. But neither side knew yet who was truly the hunter and who was the prey. The negotiations continued for 6 long hours. Daniel Cole answered every question the Council asked. He presented data on human technology, human culture, human history. He explained how his species had grown from simple farmers to starfarers in just a few thousand years. He described the wonders of Earth, the blue oceans, the green forests, the cities that sparkled with light against the night sky. The Council listened. They asked more questions. They debated among themselves in languages that the translator could not process. And through it all, Daniel remained patient. He smiled when they mocked him. He nodded respectfully when they dismissed his arguments. He never raised his voice or showed any sign of frustration. Amy Shaw stood behind him like a statue. Her legs ached from standing so long, but she did not shift her weight or show any sign of discomfort. Her training had prepared her for far worse than this. She had once remained motionless for 18 hours while hiding from enemy patrols on a jungle world. 6 hours of standing in a climate-controlled chamber was nothing, but she was not simply waiting. Her mind was working constantly, analyzing every detail of what she observed. She noticed how certain delegates glanced at the High Chancellor before speaking. She saw how others avoided looking at him entirely. She identified which species feared the Varth and which ones merely tolerated them. This information would be valuable later, when humanity began building its own network of alliances. Finally, High Chancellor Voreth raised all 4 of his arms, calling for silence. The chamber fell quiet immediately. Every being present knew that the moment of decision had arrived. "The Council has deliberated," the Chancellor announced. "We have reached a verdict on humanity's request for membership." Daniel bowed his head. "We await the Council's wisdom." The Chancellor's mandibles spread wide in what might have been a smile. "Humanity will be granted provisional observer status. You may attend Council sessions, but you may not speak or vote. You may trade with other species, but only through intermediaries approved by the Varth hegemony. These intermediaries will collect a fee of 60% on all transactions." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some delegates looked surprised. Others looked uncomfortable. A few seemed pleased that the Chancellor continued. "Additionally, humanity will withdraw immediately from the 3 colony worlds you have established in the Outer Rim. These territories fall within Zelkari space and were settled illegally. You will relocate your colonists within 1 standard year. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war." Daniel's expression did not change, but something hardened behind his eyes. Those colonies held 40,000 human beings. Men and women who had spent years building new lives on distant worlds. Children who had been born under alien suns and had never seen Earth. The Chancellor was demanding that they abandon everything they had built. "High Chancellor," Daniel said carefully, "these terms are quite severe. Perhaps we could discuss some modifications that would be acceptable to both parties." "There will be no discussion. These terms are final. Humanity will accept them, or humanity will face the consequences. And what consequences would those be?" The Chancellor rose from his seat and walked to the edge of his platform, looking down at the human ambassador. At his full height, he was nearly twice as tall as Daniel. His shadow fell over the human like a threat made physical. "The Galactic Council has authorized the Varth hegemony to take corrective action against species that refuse to acknowledge galactic law. If you reject these terms, your colonies will be seized by force. Your homeworld will be blockaded. Your ships will be destroyed wherever they are found. Your species will be taught its proper place in the order of things." Silence filled the chamber. This was not diplomacy. This was an ultimatum. The Varth were not offering partnership. They were demanding surrender. Daniel looked up at the towering insectoid without fear. "Before I respond, may I ask one question?" "Ask." "When you made this decision, did your intelligence services provide you with information about human history? Our real history, not the version we share with outsiders?" Something flickered in the Chancellor's compound eyes. For the first time since the negotiations began, he seemed uncertain. "We know enough. You are a young species. Your internal conflicts have been small and primitive." "Small," Daniel repeated softly. "Primitive." He was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice carried clearly through the entire chamber. "Less than 300 years ago, my species fought a war among ourselves. Not a war between planets or star systems. A war between nations on a single world. When it ended, 60 million of our own kind were dead. The number hung in the air like poison. 60 million. Some of the delegates tried to calculate what such a figure meant. For some species, it was more than their entire population. We did not kill them with starships or energy weapons, Daniel continued. We killed them with bullets and bombs and fire. We killed them with chemicals that burned their lungs and made them drown in their own blood. We killed them in camps designed for nothing except efficient slaughter. We killed them in cities that we burned until nothing remained but ash and bones. His voice remained calm, almost gentle, as if he were discussing the weather. But his eyes were cold. When we finally reached the stars, our military leaders were terrified. Not of aliens. They were afraid of what we might become if we ever found something we could hate more than each other. So they trained us. They taught us to control our anger. They taught us to smile when we wanted to kill. They taught us patience. He took a step closer to the Chancellor's platform. You look at humanity and see a young species, weak, harmless. You think you can threaten us into a submission because you have bigger ships and older empires. But you do not understand what you are dealing with. You do not know what lives beneath our polite smiles. High Chancellor Voreth's mandibles clicked rapidly. He was angry now, his earlier confidence replaced by irritation at this small creature who dared to lecture him. Enough of this. Guards, remove this human from my chamber. He has wasted enough of the Council's time. 4 Voreth warriors stepped forward from their positions along the wall. They were the elite of their species, soldiers who had trained for decades in the art of killing. Their armor gleamed under the chamber's lights. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Each one had taken dozens of lives in service to the hegemony. They moved toward Daniel with the easy confidence of predators approaching prey. And then Amy Shaw stepped between them and the ambassador. Ma'am, the lead guard clicked, his translator rendering his words with mechanical precision. You need to step aside. You are not the target of our action. Amy looked up at the massive warrior. He was 3 times her size. His armor could stop most conventional weapons. His training had prepared him for combat against the deadliest species in the galaxy. She smiled at him. I am afraid I cannot do that, she said, and then she moved. No one in the chamber understood what they were seeing. The human female moved in ways that should not have been possible for her species. She flowed like water around the first guard's reaching hands and struck him in the throat with her palm. The sound of breaking cartilage echoed through the silent hall. The massive warrior collapsed, dead before he hit the floor. The second guard raised his weapon, but Amy was already inside his reach. She grabbed his arm and twisted, using his own momentum to pull him off balance. Her other hand found the ceremonial blade at his belt. She drew it and buried it in his eye socket in a single smooth motion. He fell beside his companion. The third guard managed to fire his weapon. The energy bolt scorched the air where Amy had been standing a fraction of a second earlier. But she was no longer there. She had dropped low and spun, her legs sweeping the guard's feet from under him. Before he could recover, her fingers found a nerve cluster beneath his mandible. She pressed with precise, terrible force. His body went rigid and then, limp. The fourth guard ran. The entire sequence took less than 4 seconds. Amy straightened and stood among the bodies. Her formal diplomatic uniform was not even wrinkled. Her breathing was calm and steady. A small spot of blue blood stained her sleeve, the only evidence of what she had just done. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates screamed and scrambled for the exits. Security forces poured through every entrance, weapons raised and ready. Within moments, more than 40 armed soldiers had surrounded the 2 humans, their weapons humming with deadly energy. Daniel Cole adjusted the collar of his jacket as if nothing unusual had happened. I apologize for the interruption, he said politely, but I believe we need to revisit the terms of our negotiation. High Chancellor Voreth stood frozen on his platform. His compound eyes moved rapidly, trying to process what he had just witnessed. 3 of his best warriors, soldiers who had killed countless enemies of the hegemony, had been destroyed in the time it took to draw a breath. And the human female who had killed them looked as relaxed as if she had just finished a pleasant walk. "You dare," the Chancellor finally managed to say. "You dare commit murder in these sacred halls? Do you have any idea what you have done? Your entire species has just signed its own death warrant." "Have we?" Daniel asked mildly. "Commander Lane, please provide the Council with a status report." Amy touched the pendant at her throat. A beam of light shot upward and expanded into a 3-dimensional holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed a detailed map of the Council station. Every level and corridor rendered in perfect detail, and scattered throughout that map were hundreds of small blue dots. 217 operators currently in position. "Ambassador," a calm voice announced through the display. "All primary objectives can be achieved within 60 seconds of your order. Secondary objectives within 3 minutes. Extraction routes are clear." The delegates stared at the display in horror. The blue dots were everywhere. In the maintenance tunnels that ran beneath the chamber. In the ventilation systems that provided air to every room. In the security command center that controlled all defenses. In the life support facility that kept everyone on the station alive. 217 humans had infiltrated the most secure location in the known galaxy. They had bypassed sensors designed by civilizations that had been building such technology for millennia. They had slipped past guards trained to detect any threat. And they had done it so perfectly that not a single alarm had been triggered. "This is impossible," the Zelkari delegate bubbled. "Our security protocols are protected by quantum encryption. Your species does not have the computational capacity to breach such systems." Amy smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "We did not breach your systems. We wrote new ones. Your security administrators have been using passwords and protocols generated by our algorithms for the past 8 months. They thought they were following their normal procedures. They had no idea they were following ours." The Thrin delegate rose slowly from his seat, his yellow eyes fixed on Amy. His species valued strength and honor above all else. They respected warriors in a way that the Vorath never could. "You are not a diplomat," he said. It was not a question. "I am whatever I need to be," Amy replied. "Today, I am a message." Daniel stepped forward, carefully walking around the bodies of the fallen guards. "Hi, Chancellor. I want to be very clear about something. This is not an act of war. Humanity does not want war with the Galactic Council. We want exactly what we said we wanted. Partnership based on mutual respect. You call this respect?" The Chancellor snarled. "You have murdered my guards. You have infiltrated our most secure facilities. You have threatened every being on this station." "We have demonstrated our capabilities," Daniel corrected. "There's a difference. We could have walked into this chamber with enough weapons to destroy this entire station. Instead, we brought 2 diplomats and a message. The message is simple. Humanity will not be bullied." He turned slowly, addressing the entire assembly. Every eye in the chamber was fixed on him now. Not with contempt or amusement, as they had been hours earlier. Now, they looked at him with something closer to fear. "We do not want your territory. We do not want to conquer your worlds or enslave your people. We remember too well what such things cost, because we have done them to each other. We have learned from our mistakes. We have grown beyond them. All we want is the chance to prove our worth as partners." He paused and looked directly at the High Chancellor. "But we will not surrender our colonies. We will not pay tribute to the Vorath hegemony. And we will not accept being treated as lesser beings simply because our civilization is younger than yours. If you threaten our people, we will respond. Not with fleets of warships or armies of soldiers, but with the kind of warfare you cannot prepare for and cannot defend against. Above them, the holographic display pulsed gently, each blue dot representing a human operative ready to act. 217 shadows waiting in the darkness. 217 demonstrations of a capability the galaxy had never seen before. "You have heard our words," Daniel said quietly. "Now you know they are not empty. So I ask again, High Chancellor, shall we discuss the terms of a real partnership? Or would you prefer to learn what else we are capable of?" The chamber was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The future of humanity hung in the balance, and everyone present knew that the next word spoken would shape the galaxy for generations to come. The holographic display continued to pulse above the chamber, casting pale blue light across the faces of the assembled delegates. 217 dots. 217 humans who had become ghosts, slipping through the most advanced security systems in the known galaxy as if they did not exist. High Chancellor Vareth stared at the display for a long time. His compound eyes moved from dot to dot, noting where each one was positioned. The life support center, the shield generator, the communication hub, the reactor core. Every critical system on the station had at least one human operative nearby. How? He finally asked. The arrogance had drained from his voice. He sounded almost curious now, like a scientist confronted with a phenomenon that defied all known laws. "How did you accomplish this? Your species should not be capable of such operations. Your technology is primitive compared to ours." Daniel nodded, as if appreciating a good question. "You are thinking about this the wrong way, High Chancellor. You measure capability in terms of technology, ships and weapons and sensors. But that is not how humans measure power." He gestured to Amy, who still stood among the bodies of the guards she had killed. "Lieutenant Commander Amy Shaw, 16 years of service in our Special Operations Division. She speaks 11 galactic languages fluently and can pass as a member of 4 different species with the right equipment. She has been trained in 47 forms of combat. She has operated behind enemy lines for months at a time without support or resupply." Amy inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the description but adding nothing to it. Her eyes never stopped moving, tracking every guard in the room, calculating distances and angles. "Among our special operations community," Daniel continued, "she is considered mid-level, competent but not exceptional. There are humans who make her look like a beginner." A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. If this female, who had killed 3 elite warriors in seconds, was only mid-level, what were the exceptional ones capable of? The Chlori delegate spoke up. His silver skin reflected the blue light of the hologram, making him look almost ghostly. "You said you evolved as something called persistence predators. What does this mean?" Daniel turned to face him. "On our homeworld, humans were not the fastest animals. We were not the strongest. We had no claws or fangs, no armor or venom. By all logic, we should have gone extinct millions of years ago." He began to walk slowly through the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the silence. "But we had something no other creature possessed. We could run. Not fast, but far. We could track our prey across vast distances, following them for days without rest. Other animals would sprint away from us, but eventually they would have to stop. They would have to sleep. And when they woke up, we would still be there, still following, still coming." He stopped and looked around at the assembled delegates. "This is what humans are. We do not give up. We do not stop. We do not accept defeat. When we want something, we pursue it with a patience that other species cannot understand. And when something threatens what we love, we become something that even we find frightening." The Thrin delegate leaned forward. "You speak of love. This is a strange thing to mention in a discussion of warfare. Is it? Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small photograph. It was creased and worn, as if it had been handled many times. He held it up so the nearby delegates could see. The image showed a young woman with dark hair and a laughing smile. She was holding a small child, a boy who could not have been more than 3 years old. They were standing in front of a simple house with a garden full of flowers. "My daughter," Daniel said quietly. "Her name is Catherine. And this is my grandson, Peter. He turned 4 last month. They live on a colony in the Outer Rim, one of the colonies you demanded we abandon." He looked directly at High Chancellor Vorath. "Among my people, there is a saying. We do not fight for flags or empires. We fight for the people we love. Governments rise and fall. Nations are forgotten. But family endures. And when our families are threatened, we become capable of things that would horrify us under normal circumstances." He put the photograph back in his pocket with great care, as if it were the most precious thing he owned. "The Vorath hegemony has 14 major population centers," Amy said. Her voice was flat, reciting facts without emotion. "We have complete infrastructure maps of all of them. We know the daily schedules of your senior officials. We know where your military commanders sleep. We know which schools their children attend. We know the maintenance schedules of your orbital defense platforms and the security codes for every military installation." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We know the location of High Chancellor Vorath's private residence. We know that he has a collection of rare plants from conquered worlds in his garden. We know that he visits this garden every morning at the same time. We have known these things for 2 years." The Chancellor went very still, his compound eyes fixed on Amy with something that might have been fear. "This is not a threat," Daniel said quickly. "It is simply a statement of fact. You could destroy humanity if you committed the full might of the hegemony. You have the ships. You have the soldiers. You could burn our colonies and blockade Earth and slowly starve us into extinction." He took a step closer to the Chancellor's platform. "But you would never sleep peacefully again. Every shadow would hold death. Every trusted advisor would be suspect. Every meal could be poisoned. Every ship could be sabotaged. Every child could be a target. That is the warfare humans perfected long before we ever reached the stars. Not battles between armies, but a constant, grinding terror that never ends." The chamber was absolutely silent. Even the bubbling of the Zelkari had stopped. Every being present was imagining what it would be like to live under such a threat. To never know safety. To never know peace. "You see now," Daniel said softly, "why we prefer diplomacy. War between our species would be catastrophic for both sides. We would lose more ships and more soldiers. But you would lose your ability to trust anyone or anything ever again. Both outcomes are unacceptable." He spread his hands in a gesture of openness. "So I propose a third option. Partnership. Real partnership. Based on mutual respect and mutual benefit. We have much to offer each other. Let us find a way to work together instead of destroying each other." The Thrin delegate stood slowly. His species had built their empire on strength and honor. They had conquered 100 worlds through military might. But they also understood something that the Vorath had forgotten. The greatest victories were the ones that did not require fighting. "I would speak," he announced, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "The Thrin Dominion moves to reconsider the Council's position on humanity." The Thrin delegate's words echoed through the chamber like a crack in a frozen lake. For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, other delegates began to stir. The Kalori representative rose from his seat, his silver skin shimmering in the blue light of the holographic display. "The Kalori Federation seconds the Thrin motion. We propose full membership status for humanity, with standard trade rights and territorial recognition of their existing colonies. Another delegate stood. Then another. Within minutes, more than half the council had risen to support the motion. Species that had been silent for centuries, afraid to challenge Vorath dominance, suddenly found their voices. They looked at the two humans standing in the center of the chamber and saw something they had not seen in a very long time. High Chancellor Vorath watched his coalition crumble with growing despair. His authority had always rested on a simple foundation, the belief that no one would dare challenge the hegemony. The Vorath had the largest fleet, the most territory, the longest history of dominance. Other species submitted because they believed resistance was futile. In the span of a single hour, two humans had shattered that belief completely. "You cannot do this," the Chancellor said. His voice had lost its commanding tone. He sounded almost desperate now. "The Vorath hegemony has guided this council for 3,000 years. We have maintained peace. We have preserved order. You cannot simply discard our leadership because of the threats of a primitive species." The Zelkari delegate bubbled thoughtfully. "Peace? The Vorath have maintained control, not peace. There is a difference. How many species have been absorbed into your hegemony against their will? How many worlds have been stripped of resources to feed your expansion? How many delegates in this very chamber have voted with you out of fear rather than agreement?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Secrets that had been whispered in private for centuries were suddenly being spoken aloud. Daniel raised his hand, and the chamber fell quiet. "High Chancellor, I want you to understand something. Humanity did not come here to destroy the Vorath hegemony. We did not come to replace one dominant power with another. We came because we believe the galaxy can be better than it is." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many delegates as he could. "Every species in this room has something valuable to offer. The Thren understand honor and courage. The Kalori have mastered medicine and healing. The Zelkari have developed technologies for living in environments that would kill most other beings. Even the Vorath, for all their faults, have knowledge of administration and logistics that took millennia to develop." He turned back to the Chancellor. "We do not want to tear down what you have built. We want to help build something better. A council where every voice matters, where disputes are settled through negotiation rather than intimidation, where young species are welcomed instead of exploited. Is that really so terrible?" The Chancellor was silent for a long moment. His mandibles clicked softly, a sign of deep thought among his species. Finally, he spoke. "You have made a powerful enemy today, Ambassador. The Vorath do not forget. We do not forgive." "Then do not forget or forgive," Daniel replied calmly. "Simply accept reality. The galaxy is changing, whether you want it to or not. You can fight that change and watch everything you have built be destroyed. Or you can adapt and find a new role in the order that is coming. The choice is yours." Amy touched her pendant, and the holographic display flickered and changed. Instead of showing the positions of human operatives, it now displayed a series of documents: trade agreements, technology sharing protocols, mutual defense treaties. All of them had been prepared months in advance, waiting for this moment. "We have proposals ready for every species represented in this chamber," Daniel said. "Fair agreements that benefit all parties. No tribute, no exploitation. Simply partnership between equals. Take them, study them. If you have concerns or suggestions, we are willing to negotiate." The Thren delegate stepped forward and accepted a data crystal containing the relevant documents. "The Dominion will review these carefully, but I believe I speak for many here when I say that we are interested in what humanity is offering." One by one, other delegates came forward. The Kalori, the Zelkari, dozens of smaller species who had never dared to hope for fair treatment. Each one received a copy of humanity's proposals. Each one looked at the two humans with new respect. When the last delegate had taken their crystal, Daniel turned to the High Chancellor one final time. "There is a proposal for the Varth as well. You have the largest fleet and the most experience in galactic administration. Those are valuable assets. We would rather have you as partners than as enemies." The Chancellor stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached down and accepted the data crystal that Amy offered. "This changes nothing," he said. "The Varth will never be subordinate to humans." "We are not asking you to be subordinate," Daniel replied. "We are asking you to be equals. Think about it." 3 months later, the Treaty of Earth was signed in the same chamber where violence had nearly erupted. Humanity received full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and responsibilities. The Outer Rim colonies remained under human control. Trade agreements were established on fair terms, and technology exchange programs began between a dozen species. Ambassador Daniel Cole returned home to celebrations that lasted for days. But he deflected most of the credit to his team, both the ones the public knew about and the ones they never would. He retired from diplomatic service and moved to the Outer Rim, where he spent his days playing with his grandson in Catherine's garden. Amy Shaw accepted a promotion and a new assignment that she could not discuss with anyone, not even her family. She vanished into the shadows once more, protecting humanity from threats that most people would never know existed. Commander Chris Lane and his crew returned to their ghost ship and continued their endless patrol. They appeared on no official records. They received no medals or recognition. They were perfectly content with this arrangement. The Varth hegemony never recovered its former prestige. The Chancellor was quietly replaced by a younger official who was more willing to work within the new order. Other species, emboldened by humanity's example, began demanding fairer treatment. The old power structures cracked and shifted, making room for new voices. And throughout the galaxy, a new saying began to spread. It passed from species to species, translated into hundreds of languages, always carrying the same warning: never corner a human. They do not know how to surrender. They only know how to win. Some species laughed at this saying. They thought it was exaggeration, the kind of boastful talk that young civilizations often engaged in. But those who had been in the council chamber that day did not laugh. They had seen what humans were capable of when pushed too far. They had seen death standing quietly in the room, wearing a polite smile and a diplomatic uniform, waiting patiently for the moment to strike. And they had learned, in the most memorable way possible, that humanity was not to be underestimated. Not now, not ever. The stars belong to everyone now, and humanity intended to make sure they stayed that way.